Hi everyone, it's Jessica and I am back with another Makers with Heart project. This month we are all doing ideas for craft fairs, or if you're like me, I'm actually just making this for my own home. As you can see, I have a Christmas project going, and what I'm going to do is make a banner with some pages from an old The Great Gatsby book. And I'm going to have a dimensional element as well with this Christmas tree. Here's my prototype, and that Christmas tree is just going to sit on those book pages, and I'm going to spell out the word Merry as well. So I've gone ahead and cut these letters for the word Merry out of the red and white paper. Is from Holly and Ivy, and then this is some Evergreen glitter paper. Now, to adhere the paper to the glitter, I'm going to use my Tombow liquid adhesive just to make sure that it really sticks, because sometimes it can be a little tricky to glue things to glitter paper. And then when I'm done running some glue all over the back of that, I am going to set it underneath of my stamping block so that the weight can really kind of push it down into the glitter and adhere it as best as possible. Now, these letters are from the Close to My Heart Artiste collection, which is available in my Cricut shop, and I'll leave that link down below. Now, I have cut the trees from the Art Philosophy Cricut collection, also from Close to My Heart, and I want to say that they're about 4 inches in height. So I cut these out of sweet leaf cardstock, and I am going to score down the center of them, and I'm just kind of lining up the very tip of my tree and the trunk down below and putting a score line there in the center of all of them. And I'm doing this before I add any of my ink blending with that Distress Oxide ink, because I don't want to get ink all over my paper trimmers. That's why I'm doing this part first. But I did use sweet leaf cardstock just because it is retired color and I have a whole bunch of it left over. And also when I put my Distress Oxide blending over the top, I thought, it'd be kind of cool if there were any paper showing from underneath that blending, then it'd still be green, and then you kind of have like different various shades of green going on in the tree. So I'm going to take a sticky note, a full stick sticky note, and kind of put my fingers in it so that I can hold the tree down and not get fingerprints in my ink. And I'm just going to use my blending tool and that Mowed Lawn ink and basically cover the entire tree. So really, you could kind of do this step by just cutting the trees out in whatever color cardstock you want. I did think about using some water splatters on this after I was done, because that is one of the cool things about Distress Oxide ink. But when I did a test one, I didn't really like the way that it looked in particular with this. So I am going to just kind of cover these with that Mowed Lawn. And then I accidentally forgot to record it, but I did splatter them with some Evergreen Shimmer brush. All right, now let's turn our attention to those banner pages that like I said, I pulled out of an old book of The Great Gatsby, which is one of my favorite books. I actually teach it to my students, and so I thought that'd be kind of fun to have Gatsby on there. And basically how I determine the measurements for these is I just kind of, after pulling the pages out, I lined up the text with the side of my trimmer, and then I cut it that way. So that way I had an even reveal on side to side of where that text is. And so they ended up being about 4 1/4, and then they're all like 7 inches tall. So I just kind of made sure that they were pretty close together. I think I might have a few that are slightly smaller, but it doesn't really matter. You won't be able to tell when they're hanging up. All right, and so now we are going to take a corner rounder tool and just punch the bottom corners of each of those book pages. And that just makes it look a little bit more banner-like. Now you can see my sample page that I've got there that I started with, and I actually had pulled that out of a different old book that I keep for crafting purposes, and it was a Danielle Steele book. And after I made it and I was looking at what the actual page said, I thought, oh, I don't really know if I want that hanging up in my house. It was a little inappropriate, and so I thought, Gatsby for Christmas, that sounds a little bit more fun. So that's why I went with The Great Gatsby. All right, so I'm not going to use this page here, but I am going to go ahead and add that red candy apple to the top of all of my Gatsby pages. I'm also going to use some candy apple shimmer trim. Now, in order to create that cardstock piece there, I've just cut 1.5 by 6 inches of candy apple cardstock, and then I'm going to use this piece here from the Fancy Borders Thin Cut. It looks a lot like lace, and so I really liked that. And then I'm going to put the very edges of that design flush with the side of the cardstock. And that way, since I've cut all of my pieces of cardstock exactly the same and I'm taping them all on exactly the same, I know that my cut pieces will match. And when I go to put them on the top of my book pages, everything is going to be uniform. And so that's why I did it that way. So there we go. So now I'm going to use a combination of some tape adhesive and also my glue pen just to kind of get in all those little spots in that lace pattern there, because I want them to lay flat to my book page. And I'm just going to go through and add some adhesive, and then when I put this down onto that banner book page, I'm just going to center it so that the design is even on both edges. And the other thing that I did for that, not just to kind of have it centered and even from side to side, but I also really needed to have those scallops kind of go up in the center there so that I have room when I put the tree on for a star to sit there at the top, because otherwise it wouldn't all fit. And so then I'll just trim off the excess, and that's basically that part for the cardstock. But then I thought, not sparkly enough. This is for Christmas. So like I said, I'm going to pull in some of that candy apple shimmer trim, and I'm just going to run a strip of it right across the very top. And that was the other reason that I did a 1.5 inch strip of cardstock when I cut those pieces, is because I knew that the pattern itself was pretty close to 1 inch and the shimmer trim is really close to about a 1/2 inch. And so that way, again, it would kind of just go from shimmer trim straight into the pattern of the thin cut. And so trim the excess off the edges, and I try not to go too far beyond it because I don't want to waste any of that shimmer trim. All right, so there, all those pages are basically prepped and ready to go. And now we can start assembling the trees. And so like I said, I forgot to film it. I apologize, I thought it was on, but I did splatter some Evergreen shimmer brush all over those trees after I put that Mowed Lawn ink on them. So you can see some of those sparkles there and those splatters. All right, now I'm just taking my bone folder and I am doing a really good press down here to score, or on that scored line, to fold all of these trees in half. And you could certainly add more, but I did 3 trees for each of my 2 banner pieces that are going to have the trees on them. So you could kind of add more and it would make your trees look a whole lot fuller, and I think that that would be really pretty. But I was just going with 3. I was a little bit worried that if I added too many layers to my trees here, that the banner would be too heavy and it wouldn't hang right. So, all right, so now that I've gone through and kind of folded all of those, I'm going to adhere them together. So you can see how they're going to kind of stick those 2 flaps together. So I want to put adhesive on just the left side right there. Yep, because that's going to be where it's going to attach to there. So the left side of the tree, not over on the right-hand side. And I used my liquid adhesive just again to kind of get in all those corners of the tree to make sure that everything was really stuck together, and down on that little trunk, which is a tiny piece as well. And the other nice thing about it is when you use that liquid glue, it gives you a second to kind of slide things around until you have it exactly where you want it to be. And I was just making sure to line up each of those corners, and then I kind of hold it for a second to make sure that it's stuck together. Okay, so now we have 2. I'm going to use my bone folder to kind of push that together a little bit. And now we're going to put the back flap on. So this time I'm going to add adhesive to the right side of my tree, and only the right side. Then it will go to that flap that we just made. And so basically you will have a full tree kind of popping out in the middle, and then the 2 outer trees will each have a back flap that you will use to lay flat against your paper, or in this case, the pennant banner. So I thought this was really fun, and then I'll just put that underneath that block to kind of hold it down while it dries, and then I'll go through and do the second tree. So I thought this was a really fun idea. You know, personally, when I go to craft shows, I really like when I see these kind of homemade decorative items, especially holiday things. That's what I am always drawn to. But you know, this is something that I could make for myself and for my own home. So I'm just making this for me. But if you are somebody who often is a vendor at a craft show, then this is definitely, I think, a fun idea that a lot of people would be drawn to. And if you use an old book that you get at like the thrift store or something, or like a library book sale, you could pick up a book for $0.25, literally $0.25, and think about how many projects you could make out of just that one book. Those pages would go pretty far for you. So, and then just a little bit of cardstock and other little doodads on top of it. And you could really mass produce a bunch of these for not a lot of cost to yourself. And so, yeah, I've been using that Great Gatsby book for projects and my other Danielle Steele book for projects. I just rip the pages out and go to town with it. So it does feel a little bit wrong sometimes. I am a high school English teacher, and sometimes it kind of pains me to pull the pages out, but I think that the end result is really cute. So there, now I've got that second tree ready to go, and I'm just going to also stick that underneath there so that it kind of pushes it down while it is drying. I really want those to be stuck together since they are dimensional. Okay, and let's go ahead and start putting the letters down onto the banner pieces. So again, I spelled out the word Mary, and when I put these down, my original thought was, oh, to fit the tree on the banner, the tree is going to have to kind of come down to the bottom of the banner. Well, I better put my letters down a little bit so that they kind of match. So I put the letters a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the banner, but then they kind of ended up looking a little low. Once I had one down though, there was no going back. So I kept them all the same. So I'm just measuring here with my T-square ruler and hooking it to the edge of my Versamat. And I'm just measuring up a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and then that way all the letters are evenly placed and uniform. But like I said, in retrospect, I felt like they were a little low, so I'd probably center them more next time if I were to make this again. And this M, oh my goodness, I did cut these letters at 4 inches. Had they been any bigger, I don't think that M would have fit, but it just barely squeezes on. So I'll go ahead and put those other letters on off camera. And here you can see I have got everything together. So it's going to spell out Mary, and then there will be a tree on the right and on the left. So let's go ahead. These trees should be dry now. Let's go ahead and put them down on their banner pieces. And like I said, you can just kind of see we're going to take those back flaps and put those flat down to the page. So I used a little bit of regular tape runner, and then I'm back to my Tombow liquid glue just to get, again, in those corners of the tree. I really want to make sure it's kind of hard to get your tape runner in those little nooks and crannies. So that's why I kind of do a combination of liquid glue and tape runner on a lot of things in this project. And like I said, it has to go down a little ways. That's why I put my letters down. Silly me. And then that way it can also fit the star on the very top. I just love the way that this tree looks with all of that dimension. It would be so fun to have more layers to it though. You could definitely do that. You could even kind of make a bunch of these with a bunch more layers and then have them standing on something, and then it could be a decoration for the top of your mantle and not just a banner. So here's the second tree. Same process, putting those back flaps down and just kind of really pushing on it. And there you can see all that dimension. So let's get a star. We need to have a gold star for the top of our tree. Now this is actually just one of the wood stars. These ones are not current anymore. There are other wood stars that are available online though. But these are my old ones. I have quite a stash of them. And I thought about using just the plain wood, but then I thought, no, it's got to have some gold to it. So I pulled out my Gilt Gloss Spray, and I'm going to spray over the top of these stars. Now I pulled 2 extra stars because I don't want my stopper to dry and clog. So I'm going to unscrew that top, and I know there is still a lot of product left in there. And rather than just washing it down the sink when I clean out my spray bottle here, I'm going to spray the excess onto those extra stars, and then I can just save them for a later project. I kind of ran out there, and so I just took that one and tipped it upside down and swirled it in the little puddle that I had made. And there, now I've got 2 extra stars that I can use for something else. And then I took that bottle and I just ran it through some warm water and kind of sprayed it till it was all clean, and then that way it won't clog. Okay, I decided to adhere my star with some glue dots. I thought that would be probably the easiest, and really give it a good push, make sure that it's stuck down. And at this point, I'm pretty much done. I really probably could have added some more decoration kind of things, embellishment sorts of things to the letter banner pieces. But I was worried about the weight of everything if I started adding too much stuff. And also, I don't know, maybe I'll still go back later and kind of put a couple extra things on. But I punched some holes up in the top in the shimmer trim because I thought that would help to reinforce those holes. And then I just tied a couple of pieces of green yarn in bows between each piece with a longer piece on each end that I can use to put on my mantle. Now I'm just showing you this on my wall because I still have my Halloween decorations out, and I have Halloween stuff on my mantle. And so in fact, I actually did a similar project earlier this fall where I used some of my old Got Candy Halloween paper from Close to My Heart, and again the book pages, and I had made another banner that spelled out spooky, and it went along with my Halloween decorations. So you really could do this project for any kind of season or occasion. It just is a lot of fun. All right, guys, I am the last one, so I hope that you enjoyed watching all of the other Makers with Heart and their fun craft item ideas. All right, guys, happy crafting.